Well, screaming, he would say that, wouldn't he? But there you go. The other thing that we discussed this week, Cormac Lucey, he wrote an interesting article indeed. It got a lot of attention, claiming the government is gaslighting us when it comes to immigration. Now, it follows claims by David McWilliams, the economist as well, that our issues with housing is more a consequence of unconstrained demand as opposed to supply. And he warned that we would need to halve our current levels of immigration in order to catch up with supply and demand. He also looked at the reality of low-paid employment, which many immigrants will take up, and argues that it really adds nothing to the economy. Now, Pascal Dunn, who was here in Tipperary last week, he said the opposite to this. He said that the people coming into the country benefiting the economy greatly. Do you want to take that first of all, Nadine?
Sure.
Cormac Lucey's piece, you're familiar with that piece, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I think that part of the reason why I like looking at things through a legal lens is because you're talking about clarity and precision. So if you define gaslighting as being told things that are not true and then being browbeaten or otherwise manipulated into questioning your own sense of reality, to be told that immigration is having no effect on housing is laughable. So, like, you talk to the students of the purpose-built student accommodation who are horsed out in order to turn this into an IPAS centre, who now have to find accommodation which puts additional pressures on housing in that area, and some of those may not be able to attend college because they may not be able to afford it, or even find accommodation, particularly when the rug is pulled so quickly, right? To say that had no impact on housing in that area. Yeah,
well, he was talking about population growth in general, and he said that in fact it had bolstered the economy. In fact, he went so far as to say.
Oh, Pascal.
Yes.
That's nice for him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure many people are feeling particularly bolstered, but maybe if the Irish Times were to do a quick poll, I'm sure they would find out that 87% of people in Ireland are feeling magnificently bolstered by what's happening. We clearly are being gaslit on immigration because we are being told things that are manifestly, demonstrably and provably not true. So at that point, you are being gaslit. But I do think always it's important to draw a line between immigrants and immigration policy. And we're being told what the results of immigration policy are, even when they're not true. And so at that point, you have to question, well, why? And so it doesn't look great, really, does it?
Joe, what did you make of those claims from Cormac Lucey, and indeed getting quite a lot of support right across, particularly social media, indeed?
Well, I suppose, trying to just make sense, like if you have an awful lot of people, looking for houses, and the houses aren't there, naturally demand, supply, demand, and then you go along and you import, X amount, thousands of others, whatever the figures are. Sure, that's going to increase, less than the supply, increase the demand. That's only got to be human nature. And are we being told this? That yes, we are. And whatever contract we as a country have signed up to somewhere along the line, with Europe, we appear to have got in a huge amount in vastly different areas. I would have thought in the very beginning that this could have been handled a hell of a lot better, in the sense that if they put, so many, will just say 3 families in a village, 2 families in another village, and whatever else, there'd have been schools, there'd have been all these things, and all the doctors.
Integration
would have happened as well, like happened in the very beginning in Borsa and very successfully in the beginning in Borsa, and then the next day all of a sudden the sky opened, and all of a sudden there was people everywhere. And I think it's going to lead us to major problems. But you balance that then, though, with the services. Look at the services. You go into any hospital, you go into any restaurant, you go into any hospitality place. You go into the vast in Dublin and Galway. When you meet taxi drivers, you do all this, and 'tis non-national after non-national after non-national, and you're saying to yourself, yeah, would these jobs be filled? Because Ireland has expanded massively as well. So there's a bit of a balance to be struck here, and I think the bit of the balance to be struck here, I think it's got mixed up as well, I think, along the way, either conveniently or inconveniently. But I still think a lot of the time we still have the way we handled immigration is wrong, and how we handled it is wrong, and I don't think we're improving it.
Dean, how do you feel about this? Do you think we're gaslit?
About Cormac Lucey, so I do have difficulty with him being portrayed as having this all-seeing eye, and I read his article, but I just do want to point out to the listeners, if they didn't know, he was an economic advisor to the 2002 to 2007 government, Mr. Michael McDowell. So in terms of his record, I wouldn't necessarily say that there is more context to him. In terms of being gaslit and being told that things aren't a problem.
Indeed, you'd have to spread that out and say to any economist, really, because how often do they get it wrong?
100%. Anyway, economics is in the eye of the beholder a lot of the time, unfortunately. There's no one authority on it. But I would say that people are being told that people feel like there's falling living standards. And people feel as though they're not getting a break. And being on the doors last night and throughout the last 2 weeks, and I'm interested that neither Joe nor Nadal, and I don't make this point to score points, I make this point to talk about the concept of artificial scarcity. Because we're a country of artificial scarcity. If you look at the CSO, when you're saying there aren't houses, there are houses. There's 163,000 residences empty. So if we say there are no houses, we're not actually telling the truth. Because if you walk down Clonmell's marketplace, if you walk through and you see the vacancy and dereliction, people get really frustrated. Because what I get is from, we'd say if someone's walking down the town and they say, I'm here, I'm in one room, my parents are in another room, my brother or sister, and I can see vacant properties.
Right, but if you can't access the vacant properties, there are no houses.
And hence that goes back to policy in terms of Tipperary County Council's vacant sites levy, derelict sites levy on those particular pieces. There was a recent article, Pierce Doherty broke, that 79% of new homes in Dublin were bought by landlords. 79% of new homes in Dublin were bought by landlords. So there is, and are people being gaslit insofar as things are improving, we're doing well to keep the recovery going? I think that people feel totally disconnected from the political system because they don't feel the recovery in their pockets, you know. Just a few stats about immigrants, because I don't want to... I'm the son of an immigrant, by the way. So I'm the son of an Irish father. Well, my grandparents went to England as economic migrants, I'm sure. And they went and they worked. So I'm the son of an immigrant. I'm the son of someone who experienced anti-Irish racism in the UK. A son of people who was targeted by the National Front in the UK for being Irish. So for me and my family, it's quite hard when I see people targeting and vilifying ordinary women, kids, whatever, in the same way. It does something to me there, you know. And I think there's lots of people that have family overseas, and you would not like to see people being taught about as if they're not human.
Right. I suppose the issue is with illegal immigration coming into the country and we not having the proper checks and balances. I think that's really what
I
has people incensed.
So,
you know,
of the people that came into the country, we had 160,000 people, 167,000 people came in. That's 61.8% of people came in on visas. This is in 2023. 33% are 12.2% was 33,000 people in receipt of temporary protection directive. That was Ukrainians. We had 23,000 applications for citizenship, and we had 13,000 presentations, or 4.81% of the influx into the country was people seeking international protection. So of those, 23% of those migrants are nurses. So 23% of our nurses are migrant workers. 4 in 10 doctors are migrant doctors. In terms of construction, we have 27,500 people who aren't Irish working in construction. So, like, there's different types. There's the EU immigration.
Right. But this is where all the confusion lies. And the government loves to do this, and it confuses the whole thing together when most people's issue is with people illegally coming into the country.
And I think what people, and again, it's just to be really clear that Cormac Lucey's piece wasn't actually just about illegal, quote unquote, right?
Yeah, it was a rather academic piece.
It was around
kind of
casting a wide net. But what I would say is there's 1 in 5 workers are migrants. The piece that I'd like to say is, he said that low pay workers add nothing to the economy. Oh, sweet Jesus. I nearly, in my trade union hat, if low paid workers are the backbone of this economy, and low paid workers I meet every day who are fighting for a fair pay rise, I think that it's absolutely horrendous, because he's not saying, oh, immigrants typically work in low paid jobs, therefore they're no value. So what they're saying is those low paid jobs, doesn't matter who has them.
Yeah, but he didn't say they had no value, in fairness.
But they said they offer little to the economy.
Well, by the nature of the amount of money that they're making, they offer little to the
economy. But in terms of the social thing, and this is the thing, the social fabric of it, for businesses to function, they need staff, and typically from that point of view.
But a very interesting thing emerged from this about, we're going off on a tangent here now.
We are
really, really quickly though. An interesting point was made about this, that if these people were not there to be paid very, very small money, businesses then might have to pay people properly.
And in terms of that, what I would say is that the trade union movement, the quickest way to do it, which we've been fighting for decades, has been to get a fair pay. But what I would say, and we're still on a tangent, I don't want to ignore the fact that I met a young lad last night, qualified I think medical scientist, and he's heading to Australia. I don't want to understate that our young professionals leaving. I think that breaks my heart. And to see them in front, was it in Sydney they were, and they said, give us a reason to come home.
I know.
That broke my heart.
Was heartbreaking.
Because I want them to come home.
Well, but they don't have the reason, and that's the point. We'll take a break. We're back with our panel in just